Hey, this is Grant from grantbakes.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make focaccia out of leftover mashed potatoes. Let's do it. These are some of the mashed potatoes I made for Thanksgiving. It's just potatoes with cream and butter, salt, garlic powder, and I think that's it. But you can use any kind of mashed potatoes you want for this focaccia. This is going to be kind of a go with the flow recipe for me. I'm not measuring things by weight with a digital scale. I'm just kind of putting things together by volume until the dough feels right. So just go with the flow with me and you're going to make some great focaccia. Measure out your mashed potatoes until you have about 3/4 of a cup. Add the mashed potatoes to a mixing bowl. Then use that same measuring cup to get 1 cup of warm water. Put that right on top of the mashed potatoes. Then just stir everything together. Then this is focaccia, so we're going to add 1 glug of olive oil. Maybe 1.5 or 2 glugs of oil if you're feeling a little crazy. Then add a ½ teaspoon of instant dry yeast. Now it's time to add the flour. I'm just going to add enough flour so that it's a wet dough that's still pretty manageable. It's going to end up being between about 2 and 2.5 cups. There, that was roughly 2 cups of bread flour. I'm just going to stir this together to make a dough and see how the dough feels. Later, if the dough's too sticky, I'll just add a little bit more flour. And after feeling this dough with my hands, I think it's almost perfect. I'm just going to add a ½ cup of flour to finish it off. And there's already salt in my mashed potatoes, so I'm just going to add 1 teaspoon of salt to this focaccia. That should be the perfect amount. Now you don't really need to knead this dough, but just work it until all the dry bits of flour are gone and your dough holds together. Now just fold the dough over itself a few times in the bowl. Then cover it up and let it rest on the counter for ½ an hour. Then 30 minutes later, the dough won't have risen up much, so we're going to take this time to develop some gluten in the dough. Go ahead and perform a set of stretch and folds on the dough. Just grab an edge of the dough and pull it up and over the center, and grab the next edge, pull it up and over the center. Keep doing this, going around the bowl 3, 4, 5 times until you can feel the dough getting tighter and smoother. Then flip the dough over in the bowl so the seam side is on the bottom and the smoothish side is on the top. Then cover up the dough and let it rise in a warm spot for about 2 hours or until doubled in size. And 2 hours later, this is what my dough looks like. Now it's time to prepare the pan for your focaccia. I've got this baking sheet lined with a silicone nonstick liner. If you don't have one of these, you can just use parchment paper. Now focaccia is all about olive oil, so load up the bottom of the pan with some olive oil. That's going to give the bottom of the focaccia a really crispy base. Then loosen up the dough to get it out of the bowl and transfer it carefully with the smooth side up on top of the olive oil. Then gently stretch this dough into a rectangle. You can pop any huge air bubbles, but try to keep as much air in this dough as possible. Then just sprinkle a little bit of flour on top of the dough. And cover it up and let it proof for 1 hour. Then 1 hour later, your focaccia should be poofy and proofy and ready to add your toppings. The one non-negotiable topping here is about 4 to 8 glugs of olive oil. Again, being super precise here with my measurements. Then I'm adding a few sprinkles of salt. Either kosher salt or flaky sea salt would work really well here. Then the last thing I'm adding is dried rosemary. That's one of my favorite toppings. You can really add any fresh or dried herbs you want. Also, cherry tomatoes or pitted olives would be a great addition to this. Then dip your fingers in the olive oil and start dimpling the dough. Basically, you're just pressing down with your fingertips until you feel the bottom of the pan. And those little dimples are great because they just trap all that oily, salty, rosemary flavor while the focaccia is baking. Speaking of baking, bake this at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 to 30 minutes. And exactly 21 minutes later, this is what my focaccia looked like. And just so you know, I turned the baking sheet about halfway through cooking just so the focaccia would brown evenly on both sides. Since this delicious bread is still so hot and steamy on the inside, wait for at least an hour for it to cool before you slice in. So it's been an hour and I'm ready to slice into this focaccia. And here's my review, whatever you want to call it. Here's the rundown. I've made focaccia a bunch of times before. It's always really good. And this one is really good too. What's different about this focaccia is how soft and fluffy it is. I have never made a focaccia this soft and fluffy. I guess it's the mashed potatoes. I'm not sure how the science works or anything, but the mashed potatoes make this super soft and delicate. Oh yeah, look at that focaccia squeeze. This focaccia is so soft, the knife is literally cutting through it like hot butter. I honestly couldn't believe it when I was slicing the bread. So if you got some leftover mashed potatoes laying around, if it's after Thanksgiving or just a weeknight meal, whatever, don't throw them away. Make some of this delicious mashed potato focaccia. I guarantee you'll love it. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please hit the thumbs up button. It really helps out my channel. And if you want to learn how to make better bread, sourdough, and pizza at home, subscribe to the Grant Bakes YouTube channel for more videos every single week. I'll see you next time.